right, welcome to On Texas Football, our junior day preview, the class of 2026 and 2027. We'll get into all of it here, but it's mainly for the 2026 recruits. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel and Gerry Hamilton. CJ, we'll start with you. The most important position on the field is quarterback. It's Diabell, and who else on the 40 acres this weekend?
And of course, Diabell coming back to campus is big for the Longhorns, but it's also going to be accompanied by 2027 quarterback Peyton Houston of Shreveport Evangel Academy, a really talented prospect that was on campus for the junior day elite camp in June of last year. We'll start with Dia, however, because this is a really big, important opportunity for Texas to really get a grasp, to kind of show off and advertise and market its quarterback for the 26 class, similar to how they did that with KJ Lacey a year ago. And of course, that played large dividends for the Longhorns as the class moved on. And as KJ was able to go to visit to meet with Kalik Lockett, Jamie French, Dalen McCutcheon, those relationships grew, and soon enough, all three ended up joining the class. But for Dia to get back on campus with this group coming in, it's very important as the ringleader in the class. Worth mentioning on Peyton Houston, Sarkisian has offered him a contract. He's already offered him an offer, right? And there's only been 3 quarterbacks so far this year for 2027 that have earned an offer from Steve Sarkisian. He's one of them. He's also the only one that will be on campus. Also worth mentioning that he had a game this past fall, guys. We're through for 817 yards. Heck of an athlete. Texas is on him early. He made it to campus about 3 or 4 times a year ago as well.
Yeah, and that's probably with 2 or 3 drops. Probably should have been 9.
Gerry, hopefully a place where we don't see drops is the running back position. We've seen Tashard Choice do this with 2 back classes. He'll find him a guy in state that he loves. He'll find him a guy out of state that he loves. What's that picture look like right now, and what does that mean for Saturday?
Yeah, so the 3 there, we're mentioning 3 in-state running backs now. It has been 2, which Javian Osborne will be in town on Saturday as expected. He was at Georgia last weekend, so he turned down Notre Dame to go to Texas because Notre Dame was really trying to get him on campus. But Tashard Choice and Sark were by the school. I can't remember, earlier this week. Let's just say earlier this week. I think it was Tuesday, and then Choice made an in-home visit Tuesday night. We feel like Texas is the favorite over Michigan. Michigan was by the school Wednesday. Georgia's trying to make a run at him. Notre Dame, everybody's trying to make a run at him. I mean, Javian Osborne's one of the top backs in the country, top handful of backs, 5'9", 195. His best assistant coach relationship is with Tashard Choice, and he will be in town this weekend. Also in town this weekend is KJ Edwards from Carthage. KJ Edwards had a monster junior season for Scott Surratt and the Bulldogs, another state title for Surratt. He's out of fingers now. He's got 10. But he's going to have to go to toe ring or ear ring next year. But on KJ Edwards, 5'10", about 180, explosive back. Doubtful that Texas takes 2 in-state running backs, like you said, Jeff Howe, unless Amari Latimer, the big back who's not coming in this weekend from Tyrone Sandy Creek, Georgia, were to go a different direction. But then there's a 3rd running back that's been invited to junior day. And he is a little bit off the radar, but it's flown onto the radar his junior season. And that's Isaiah Lee from Lancaster. He had a big junior season for the Tigers this year. And he put out that he is going to got invited and will be at Texas junior day. So again, recruiting process goes on. A number of schools have offered him of late, Ole Miss being one of those. He is a power 4 back. He is another back that's emerged in the state of Texas, along with Jonathan Hatton, who the former Oklahoma commit in Cibolo Steel, makes 4 really talented backs for sure in this state. And there's others that are really good as well. But those 3 backs, Javian Osborne, KJ Edwards, Isaiah Lee, will all be on campus for junior day. And we'll see kind of where all this kind of shakes out in terms of timing. I don't think any of these guys are deciding soon. I think it's going to go into the spring and even into the summer before senior season. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But those 3 in-state backs will be on campus Saturday.
CJ, we're one cycle removed from Texas getting a massive haul of wide receivers when you think about Jamie French and Dalen McCutcheon and Kalik Lockett. No shortage of wide receivers lining up to play for Sark and to play in this offense. And Chris Jackson, with his NFL background, that appeals to kids as well. He's done a really good job on the recruiting trail. What is this cycle in 2026 setting up to be like?
Yeah, I think, again, Texas will have kind of its choosing to pursue in the wide receiver market. They kind of singled out a handful last year and said, we're going to go after really these 5 or 6. And really it came down to really about 3 or 4 towards the end. And they did a heck of a job landing whoever was available for them, 2 of them which had 5 stars by their name this year. And for this event coming up on Saturday, the list isn't extensively long, right? It's pretty compact when it comes to the number of wide receivers coming in, which is pretty unique for an event like this in January, in which we've seen north of 120 prospects in years past. A few wide receiver names to know. Obviously, Caden Finley, the son of former Longhorn great Jermichael Finley, wide receiver out of Aledo. I'm going to be really interested to see how his physique is. Of course, he was a guy that was maybe thought of to move into a tight end role. Oddly enough, he's stuck at wide receiver, right? And so I'm going to be eager to see kind of how his body is. Texas was a school that was linked to him early, obviously, and now he's back on campus. Jabari Mack out of Destrehan, Louisiana, on campus. He was recently at Texas A&M as well. I believe he has trips planned for LSU and Ohio State later on in the month or early February as well. And then one other name to keep an eye on is Mike Brown out of Legacy, the School of Sports Sciences out of Houston. He was on campus for the Pool Bash and the Elite Camp last summer. So Texas double dipped last summer. He's kind of flown under the radar for Texas circles, but he'll be back as well this Saturday.
Gerry, let's get to my favorite position, the offensive line. We know John Turntine, the talented offensive tackle from North Crowley, not going to be there on the 40 acres this weekend, but doesn't mean Kyle Flood's going to have a lack of options and guys at or near the top of his board on campus.
Yes, there will be plenty of food eaten at lunch on Saturday. Felix Ojo, who needs to eat more. He's the slim 6'6", 280 guy. We call him 4-star plus here, Jeff, at On Texas Football, meaning we think he's a top 50, 75 level prospect in the country. Where all this shakes out's a long ways down the road. But he is going to be on campus. He confirmed that on a Texas visit there. I believe that was Wednesday. Kyle Flood was by Mansfield Lake Ridge. He's one of the top prospects in the country as an upside offensive tackle. Toa Katoa, where Kyle Flood and Sark were yesterday afternoon at Euless Trinity. Toa Katoa will be in town. I don't know, CJ, what feels like the 5th or 6th time in the last year. We believe Toa Katoa is a Texas lean right now, and we believe he will stay close to the home despite some ties out in BYU, Utah, out in the Salt Lake area. And then there's Nicholas Robertson, the guard out of Klein High School, 4-star prospect. Junior tape's really good. He's a large human. He fits kind of SEC guard frame and mode. Really moves people in a run game. 6'4.5", about 335. We believe he's a Texas lean as well. Then you're talking about Max Wright, the tackle from Melissa. On junior tape, which I've watched, guys, he may be the most improved from sophomore to junior year of all the in-state offensive line prospects. Everybody that's come through in January that's offered him, Michigan, Arkansas, Sam Pittman, all these schools that have TC, everybody that's come through has offered Max Wright. We believe he's a Texas lean, which means Texas has some decisions to make. Then there's Zayden Crimpen from Prosper that'll be in. Mm-hmm. He plays tackle, but he's more of a center guard at the next level. And I think for Texas, it might be center. He's coming in as well. Another guy that arguably would be a Texas lean now as he opened to playing center at the next level. Those are conversations that will have to be had. But those are the main offensive linemen coming in. And that is a really solid group. Obviously, John Turntine has family event this weekend, so he's not going to come in. He'll be on campus plenty. His sister goes to Texas. Another sister goes to Houston Tillotson. He'll be on campus again. We believe Texas is still in a good spot with John Turntine. He was at A&M last weekend, but he will not be here this weekend. But those 5 juniors alone will keep Kyle Flood patient or keep Kyle Flood busy. Patience is actually going to be the key for Texas in this class because I think they have a lot of kids on this offensive line, Jeff and CJ, they might want to commit early, and that's not really Sark's MO. So let's see what happens here.
Can never have too many offensive linemen, can never have too many defensive linemen in college football's ultimate line of scrimmage league in the SEC. CJ, what's that defensive line outlook for Saturday?
Yeah, we'll start with the big one, right? We talk about needing rocks in the middle of your defensive line, and Texas has gone out already in this portal cycle and added 2. Well, the biggest one in my eyes is Dylan Berryman out of Louisiana. I mean, again, if you've seen photos of him, his statue is literally just a rock, right? That's a big-time prospect in the middle of the defensive line that Texas has been on early. He was on campus last year for a game or 2. Jamion Winfield, Gerry, I know you're very high on him as well. Heck of a prospect out of Richardson. He will be on campus as well. Texas recently offered about a week ago. Now that they're getting him back on campus, looking to double dip as well because I believe, and Gerry, correct me if I'm wrong, he was at Texas A&M last week. And so you're trying to hold serve there, right? You're trying to keep up with your in-state rival for a big in-state defensive lineman. Obviously, Texas knows how important those are from the last cycle. Yaha God out of South Gibson, Tennessee, someone that was hoping to make a decision pretty recently, back on campus for the Longhorns. We'll see if a decision is near or if there's a date kind of established after this weekend as well. And then getting to the edges, there's a pair that I think are really intriguing for the Longhorns. The first is Jamarian Carlton out of Temple. And I got to see him down in San Antonio for the Navy All-American Bowl practices. Again, 6'4.5", 6'5". He looks entering his senior season as Zina Umeozulu looked after his senior season. Very lengthy, built very well. I spent a lot of time in the weight room from the spring of 2024 to the conclusion of his football season 2024. So the frame is there as well. And then KJ Ford out of Duncanville, big name. Texas has obviously had some success out of Duncanville recently. The two of them make for quite a headline coming in on the edge room. But we'll see about Sean Scott out of Mater Dei as well, because Texas has been intrigued with him. Is he more a tweener, outside linebacker, edge rusher? Texas bring him in as an edge rusher. Solid front seven class coming in, Gerry and Jeff, and it starts with that defensive line unit.
Yeah, Jeff, I just want to add this. Jamion Winfield, just so you know, like when I went through Richardson a couple of weeks ago prior to the semifinal game, you know, I thought I was going to see a 6'3", 275-pound guy, and he looks 275, but he weighs 297. And he's got high calves, long arms, 11-inch hands. And I walked away from there, and I've said on this on shows, I'm putting myself out there, and I don't think it's a twig. I think it's a really strong branch. This kid's going to end up being a top 35 level kid in the country, maybe a 5-star prospect. He moved in from Meridian, Mississippi in July. So he literally got lost in the recruiting process unless you were Ole Miss and Mississippi State and knew who he was. But he is barely starting to scratch that surface. He's going to blow up. And then Sean Scott, to CJ's point, Sean Scott is that edge linebacker, kind of like Trey Moore. He's a nationally recruited guy, a guy that's been on campus 2 or 3 times. But he's really high on the Longhorns out of Mater Dei. So it's going to be interesting to see, again, this staff has some decisions to make on who to truly push. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting to see how it works out. But on the defensive line, also we want to mention Kenny Baker's offering a lot of Southeast guys right now too. And we're not going to go over that now. That's on ontexasfootball.com. But there's more offers going out on the D-line. So we're going to have a lot of fun conversations covering those guys in the future.
Hey, look, the reason why the SEC's rattled off so many national championships in a row before the last couple, it's the ultimate line of scrimmage league. That's where the line of scrimmage talent is in the Southeast. People have known where to go, Gerry, for line of scrimmage talent. Off-ball linebacker is one of the positions nationally in state, period, across the board in the game that's fascinated me. And I feel like after that 2019, that 2020 NFL draft with Kenneth Murray and Jordan Brooks, and you had Malcolm Rodriguez at Oklahoma State, that really kind of broke the system and made everybody take a step back and say, okay, what have we missed here? You know, when a guy like Terrell Bernard ends up being a highly productive college player. I feel like, though, the recruiting industry and, more importantly, college staffs have really figured, okay, now we know what we're looking for at off-ball linebacker. How do you see that translate, not just for Saturday, but for the 2026 outlook for Texas and beyond?
Yeah, it's what's interesting is I think Johnny Nansen has a type, right, CJ, and they're 6'2", 6'3" with long arms, right? And guys that they can add to that frame, and they have longer levers in the SEC, playing against the bigger, longer offensive linemen, those blocks you have to take on. Then the athletes you're having to chase the tackle. I think arm length does matter in the SEC. But, you know, as far as Saturday goes, look, Texas has 3 of the best in the state coming, scheduled to be in. And I do want to say this to everybody, scheduled to be in. There'll be 1 or 2 that drop off and don't show up, and there'll be a couple that show up that we're not expecting right now. Mm-hmm. So I always want to say scheduled because there's transportation, there's whatever, fight with girlfriend. I mean, you just never know, right? A couple of guys aren't going to show up. But the one I love the most in this state, in this class, is Kosi Okpala from Maid Creek. 6'2", maybe 6'2" and change, about 215. He plays off the edge. He's an off-ball linebacker as well. He fits that profile. Texas was by the school late last week. He fits that Johnny Nansen profile. If you look at the guys Texas has offered, he's that guy. And then there's Tank Ken. I think Texas probably leads A&M for Okpala, but we'll see. I think it could go either way, but I think Texas has been the favorite for a while. He's one that may announce in March or April around his birthday in late March. So we'll see if that holds. He may not be one of those summer decisions. Then there's Tank King, 7-on-7 teammate of his and buddy, who's out of Port Arthur Memorial. Tank King, he's been on the radar since first game of his freshman year, playing for Port Arthur Memorial varsity, which, Jeff, you've covered PA Memorial for years. CJ knows PA Memorial. The start as a freshman, you're really good in that program. And he's been a starting instinctive inside backer for them since his freshman year. And it's funny what you said about linebackers, Jeff, because he may not have the longest levers. He may not be the tallest guy, but he's just going to leave high school with 500 tackles probably. Oof. And so you think about that from the Nick Bolton, right? How many people passed on Nick Bolton? Well, his arms aren't long enough. We wish he was an inch and a half taller. Dang, we wished he ran 4.62 instead of 4.69. Is Tank King that next guy? We'll find out. But Texas does like him. Steve Sarkisian, Blake Gideon watched him play in person against Jonah Williams earlier this year. I happened to be at that game. So they've watched him as a junior in person. They've watched the tape, and it'll be interesting to see where that one goes. Then there's DeQuivies Beck from Carthage. There's two really good linebackers at Carthage. There's also kid Chase Crawford, who, if any colleges here listening, they need to start offering. He's really good. He has no offers. It's a joke. But DeQuavies Beck is again, in that same mold as Tank King, even though I think he's going to play outside long term. Maybe not the 6'3", 225-pound guy, but just a really productive player. And he is coming in with KJ Edwards. Obviously, Texas has offered him, and they're bringing him in this weekend as well. So three of the most talented linebackers in the state of Texas. And we'll see, is this a 2-linebacker class or is it a 3-linebacker class? I think if Texas had signed or does sign 3 linebackers in the 25 class, I think this number goes to 2. If they only end with 2, I think it may go to 3 in 2026. Now CJ's got the fun position because there's some of my favorite players in the state are coming in at DB now.
Yeah, CJ in the secondary. We've seen 2 big-time safety offers go out ahead of this junior day. What's your take on Saturday? And in this 2026 class, a really good secondary class in the state of Texas.
Yeah, I was going to kind of lead this position off by saying this list of attendees from the defensive back group for 2026 kind of looks like the who's who in the state, right? You know, it's a really deep class. And I think that maybe at cornerback, you're missing the Devin Williams of the class, but hey, maybe it ends up being Jalen Lott. But I really like this group, and I'll leave some meat on the bone for Gerry to chime in here in a bit. But starting with Jamarian Vincent out of Waco Connolly, a guy that's been to campus several times. He told us last summer that Texas was a team in his top 2 or 3 at the time. He went to campus probably 3 times for games this past summer or this past fall as well. He's someone to really keep an eye on. And then I'll move over to Jalen Lott because both Panther Creek kids are worth mentioning in the same breath. Lott, again, his father, James Lott, is in the Texas Hall of Honor for being a heck of a track athlete as well. Jalen's developed into quite the athlete himself, a 5-star caliber talent who I think could go either way in college. I know that right now most schools are developing and recruiting him as a cornerback, but his teammate Donovan Webb, the safety, who's really started to pick up on the trail, especially since Gerry went out and saw him in person a couple of weeks ago. Both will be on campus. Texas recently just offered Donovan Webb as well. The last player I wanted to mention before Gerry, I'll let you have the floor, is Isaiah Williams out of Fort Bend Marshall. He made it to campus several times last year. Texas very much in the running there. Former teammate of Caleb Chester, who signed with the Longhorns this past December, and now one of those more highly rated defensive backs in the state of Texas. But Gerry, I named 4 right there. I'll leave you the rest because I know that you got a lot to say about these guys.
Yeah, I mean, Donovan Webb is one hell of a football player. I mean, look, how many safeties go for 233 tackles combined in 2 years? I can't recall seeing that as a sophomore and junior. That guy lives around the football. I mean, there's got to be footballs like in his bed all over his room. That's just the way he is. He's always around the football. Chase Calicut's an interesting one out of North Shore. Texas offered him last week. I saw him late in the season when North Shore's in the playoffs. We list him as a safety, but I kind of wonder if he ends up being an outside backer long term. I think North Shore staff maybe thinks that. He is a kid that I think is going to be 225, 230 pounds. So we list him as a safety, but we'll see where this goes long term with what colleges really think about him. I think you have to offer him as a safety, but where is that future position for him? Because that is a frame that while he's 190, 195 right now, he has got 30, 35, 40 pounds on that frame he could add. So I think that's one. And then there's Blake Stewart from Atlanta Woodward Academy is coming in with his father. And that's not a name Texas fans know a lot about. He was on campus, I believe, last spring or summer. But Tashard Choice recruits that Atlanta area. Kenny Baker recruits that Atlanta area. Terry Joseph is recruiting Stewart, so he will be in town Saturday. And then we'll see. We're monitoring. We think Aaron Bradshaw from North Crowley may be coming in, the recent offer from yesterday at North Crowley, the 4-star safety, 6'3", 185. But we haven't got it confirmed yet. Again, I just want to say as we close out, there's going to be some of the guys we talked about, a couple of them that probably won't show up for whatever reason. And then there's definitely going to be 2 or 3 or 4 key additions that maybe pop tomorrow that are going to come in Saturday. But it's a great group of guys for January 25th, considering Florida has a junior day, Notre Dame has a junior day. There's a lot of programs around the country that have junior days this weekend. So you're competing with blue bloods to get players in. But Texas' response has been very, very good.
The response has been good. And hey, guys, this is where, after the lost decade, this is where you want Texas to be in the thick of the fight with some of the top guys in the country looking to bolster a roster. It's great to have some top 3 classes back to back to back. The challenge, Gerry, as you know, you've been doing this long enough, it's how many of those can you stack on top of each other? That's what the Nick Sabans and the Kirby Smarts and the Urban Meyers and the guys that have won multiple national championships, that's what they do to keep themselves at the top. Yeah,
no doubt. And I'll predict this one right now. Texas will sign a 5th straight top 5 class. Will it be 1, 2, 3, 4? I can't say that right now. And nobody really can, because the rankings are going to prospect rankings are going to change so much in the next few months. And that factors into the calculation of class rankings. But I'm comfortable in saying Texas will sign a top 5 class for a 5th straight year, as long as they have the numbers.
I'm comfortable saying CJ will remember to bring hand warmers and everything else that he needs to stay nice and toasty on Saturday. It'll be cold, but we'll be out on the 40 acres, out at the Moncrief Cup. Big day on the 40, guys. We got a basketball game against the top 15 Texas A&M team, a men's game, and junior day going on. And we'll have it all for you at ontexasfootball.com and on our YouTube feed. For Gerry Hamilton and CJ Vogel, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you for checking out our Junior Day preview. Again, go to the website for more, and we will have more on Junior Day as events develop.